This is Bishop Craig in Lansing, and this is Take One for the week of March 21st. Peace be with you. Next Sunday, we begin Holy Week, Palm Sunday through Easter. And as is my practice, I spent some time in the last day reading the Palm Sunday story and the Passion of Jesus this year, for those who follow the Revised Common Lectionary from Mark. This year I read it online rather than reading it from the lectionary book, and I was surprised at how much goes on in Mark's Gospel between Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem and, let's say, the plot to take Jesus' life, the plot with Judas. There's a lot of teaching that goes on. Now, my pastor would tell me that if I followed the narrative lectionary rather than the Revised Common Lectionary, I wouldn't be surprised by this at all, and he would be right. But one of the things I'm wondering about this year is about the teaching that goes on between Palm and, let's say, Passion. It's just something I'm wondering about. Turning to the Palm Sunday reading, two observations that I would share. I was intrigued this year by the colt. Let me just say that every year when I read the Palm and Passion Sunday, stuff jumps out at me, and that's where I go if I am fortunate enough to be preaching. This year I was struck by the colt because my question was, why a colt and not a donkey? And of course that took me to Zechariah 9, where the prediction of the Messiah, the prophecy of the coming of the Messiah is there. And it is something like that, see your king comes righteous and sitting lowly on the foal of a donkey. That's Zechariah 9. I don't have the verse memorized. But the point is that Jesus is riding a colt to establish his messianic credentials. So for those who know the scriptures, they get it. There is no doubt that the Messiah is coming into Jerusalem. The other thing that I find interesting in the Palm Sunday story is that Jesus sends two disciples and says, go and get this colt, and if anyone asks, say the teacher has need of it. And of course someone asks, and they say the teacher has need of it, and they're like, take the colt. Jesus is in charge of this whole thing. Jesus is willingly and knowingly going to Jerusalem and the cross. So Jesus is the Messiah, and this is God's plan and God's way. I then next find myself in Mark 15 as Pilate hands over Jesus to be crucified. And I couldn't get through it because it seemed all too real. I did get through it, but it was not just in my head. It seemed all too real that the soldiers put a purple robe on him and twisted a crown of thorns, and then they mocked him. They saluted him, they spat upon him, they struck him, and they stripped him on their way to crucifying him. Last week I talked to you about bullying, and I am very grateful to everybody that reached out to me on phone and email to express your support and to say you're supporting your pastor. Thank you very much. I was especially moved by people that called to tell me their stories of bullying. People that are members of our churches that kind of said, I want to talk to the bishop, and just said, we're really sorry, and told stories, some of them going back like 60, 70 years to the playground. And I can tell you, the playground is not always a place of fun and play. Bullying. And then it continues at the cross where they deride Jesus. Not only are they crucifying Jesus, they're deriding Jesus. They've turned him from a person into an object. Wow. And so I'm saddened by bullying, especially this week as a nation, we are struggling with the bullying of Asian Americans, older Asian Americans, who are afraid to go outside, afraid to go to the store because they might get hurt. I'm shocked by the fact that Ohio State Buckeyes lost in the NCAA tournament, and one of the players is getting death threats, racial slurs, because they lost a basketball game. I heard on the news this week that what our country needs is someone to show us how not to do hate speech and how to forgive. Sounds to me like the church, how not to do hate speech and how to forgive. Boy, sounds like the church is being called to work for the sake of the common good. In the early centuries, we fed and clothed and cared for widows and orphans. In the last century, we welcomed immigrants and provided for them, helped them get established in this country. Maybe the 21st century, the church will be the place that leads the nation in dealing with eliminating hate speech and finding forgiveness. Because the good news we have is that Jesus goes all the way to the cross. And on the cross, Jesus says, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, my God, why have you forsaken me? And, theologians have a lot of fun asking, did God really forsake Jesus? That misses the point. The point is, Jesus felt God forsaken. Jesus felt forsaken by everyone. So when we are bullied, and when we feel forsaken, even God forsaken, Jesus knows what that is like. And Jesus is with us in our forsakenness. Jesus the Messiah, who entered Jerusalem knowingly, who had every opportunity and every good reason to throw up his hands and turn his back and walk away, went all the way to the cross, all the way to death, to be with us in our forsakenness. And as we get to Easter in Mark, I always enjoy Mark's telling, because the women flee from the tomb and they say nothing to anyone because they are afraid. The women know that everything's been turned upside down. God grant that what's been turned upside down is hate speech and bullying, so that we speak truth in love and forgive. I'm going to spend the week going to a couple of meetings on Zoom, and I'm very excited because some of you know I've been writing a book for the last year. Really grateful to Pastor Chris Laughlin, who spent last Lent checking in with me to say how's the writing going. We were only off by one Lent, Chris. But I will finish the book this week, or at least the first draft of it. I've been thinking about the time my family and I got to visit Nome, Alaska, as the Iditarod race was ending. Some people come into Nome with their sled dogs in great fanfare, and some come alone in the still of the night. I expect that finishing my book will be the latter. And yet I'm grateful for the journey because God has been walking very closely alongside me as I've written this book. I once told my editor for one of the first books that giving it to her was like pushing a child out of an airplane. This one feels like reaching into my chest and handing over my heart. So I'm excited to to finish it and sad. And that's what I'll be doing this week as we move into Holy Week and Easter. So my prayer for you all is that you find some time this week to read the Passion and to let it be real and to know that Jesus is with us for real. This is Bishop Craig. This is Take One. You take care.